College football week 8, October 19th. Let's do this. Big week of college football. Let's start off. Georgia-Texas game is in Austin. Texas is a 3.5-point favorite. Dylan, I'll start with you.
Coming into both of these SEC games, I was like, what am I going to do here? Like, I don't feel very strongly either way. When you look into the stats, some of the things that kind of point out to me, I broke everything down by personnel almost. Who has the better personnel groups in terms of positions, offensive line, defensive line? Here's what I came up with. Interrupt me if you disagree. Secondary, Texas. Offensive line, Texas. I think they have the best offensive line in the country. I think they have the best pass rush block grade or pass block grade. Defensive line, Texas. Wide receiver, Texas. Running back, Georgia. Quarterback, Georgia.
Wrong. Quarterback, Texas. I think that's my disagreement.
That's the only one you disagree with?
I cannot get the Carson Beck first half performance against Alabama out of my head. I know he's put up some great stats against bad teams, but I cannot shake that.
That would be my counterpoint. Is you take away 2 quarters. Carson Beck's put together a pretty good season. Kentucky, I guess. They weren't able to run the ball, though.
And then who else did they
13
play?
points, yeah.
I guess Clemson, that win's looking better and better.
Yeah.
That was what, 2 months ago?
That was 2 months ago.
Well, it was part of the season. What are we doing? We just
okay.
Come on now. What are we doing here?
Slow.
In my opinion, Texas has a huge advantage on defense, a much more successful pass rush, best team in the nation in coverage, top pass block rating. The only area where Georgia has the advantage here is in the run game. I do think that Etienne Jr. Is better than Jaden Blue, but everything else says Texas takes care of this game. The defense steps up. I think the offense will get it going. I love Texas in this spot. Texas minus 3.5. I don't think this game is particularly close. This is my olive branch to you Texas fans out there. I know we got some followers. People watch the show. Carter, you earned your good graces. This is my olive branch to you guys.
So that's it,
Texas, big. I think this is a real wake up call for Georgia.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna have the college game day graphic, aren't we, Connor?
Oh.
We 100% are. I've got a spiel here. Texas obviously convincing win last week against Oklahoma. Like I just said, I cannot get the Carson Beck first half against Alabama out of my head. I know he's put up numbers against bad teams. I just think of that in a huge spot, how he performed there. Meanwhile, Texas defense leads the nation in scoring defense, passing defense, and yards per play allowed. They've surrendered a touchdown on just 1/3 of opponent red zone trips, first in the FBS. Texas defense is elite, better than Alabama's defense, who Carson Beck struggled against for much of that game. Georgia, 1-5 against the spread this season, hasn't covered since Clemson week 1. This is not the elite Georgia defense we're used to. Usually we're like, oh, Georgia's first in this and second in this major category and third in this defensive category. Not this year. Georgia gave up 41 points to Alabama, 31 to Mississippi State this last weekend, 21 in the second half of that game. It was also 14-3 at halftime against Auburn 2 weeks ago, and then they barely squeaked by with 13-12 against Kentucky. Georgia defense, 67th in opponent pass yards per play. Pass defense has not been consistent. Here's why I think Texas wins. Has Georgia had a convincing full game yet? Since week 2. Clemson, yes. Week 2 against the Cupcake, yes. Since week 2, have they played a convincing 2 halves, 4 quarters of football? I don't think so. Meanwhile, in a year defined by upsets through 7 weeks, Texas has yet to win a game by less than 19 points. They have looked good against everybody they've played. Even with Arch Manning playing, I know Quinn Ewers started slow against Oklahoma. I think he's settled in. I think he'll be fully integrated and back for this Georgia game. And I refuse to trust Carson Beck against a Texas defense that's been elite through these first 6 games. I think Texas minus 3.5 is a great play this week. I think it's going to be double-digit win for Texas. I think you're right, Dylan. Wake-up call for Georgia.
And to add to that, Georgia didn't put 2 halves together against Clemson. That first half was very close. That's fair. You know what? That's true. That was a rock fight. That second half is when things blew open because the Clemson offense couldn't complete a pass.
Yeah, and the Georgia defense, real quick, they've been middle of the road, but for Georgia standards, they have not been nearly what we're used to.
Yep.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Go ahead, Dylan.
I want to entertain a path here. I am on Tech. I think Texas wins. I think they win big. I'm confident in that, but I do want to entertain one small scenario where Georgia might be able to capitalize on some things here. We see a bigger drop off for Texas quarterbacks in their passer rating when clean and under pressure, about 30 points. But for Georgia, it only drops 2. So if there is a world somehow, some way, Georgia is able to pressure Quinn Ewers, that might open the game up for Georgia a little bit. The problem is the Texas offensive line is so good. I don't know if I see a world where Georgia's able to get that pressure.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And then also, I think this is Georgia's path to winning this game. Quinn Ewers is not 100%. That's my big concern coming into this game. We watched the Texas OU game. He was missing throws. He wasn't comfortable. Yeah, you look at the score, 34-3. Great. Texas was miles better than Oklahoma, but Quinn Ewers was looking a little rusty in that game.
It was better as the game went along, though, right?
He still would miss throws throughout the game, and that's why I was concerned, where it didn't matter. And also, they were working with short fields because the defense was just obliterating them. Quinn Ewers really didn't have to do much in that game. I don't know if that's rust. I don't know if that's this guy came back a little too soon from a weird shoulder injury we really don't know about. So that's my big concern with Texas. Besides that, you look at everything else in this game. Dylan mentioned it. I don't have to repeat it. Texas has the advantage in almost every single spot in this game except maybe the run game. I think Georgia's path to winning this game is Quinn Ewers is still looking a little rusty / injured, and then you can't bench him. You can't bring in Arch Manning unless he's seriously hurt. And then it comes, okay, Georgia's getting pressure on an injured Quinn Ewers. It comes to a point where would Texas ever pull Quinn Ewers and put in Arch in this game?
They would have to wheel him out in a cast or something if they did that.
If he's injured, that's only.
I think
that
so
is the
too.
only.
And that's why I think that's Georgia's path to victory. Other than that, it's Texas in the spot. We also talk about, I don't even know if you mentioned it, Dylan, the Texas D-line against this Georgia offensive line. They're going to be able to get pressure in this game. They're going to be able to swarm Georgia. This game's in Austin. This game's in Texas. That's a big advantage. That's one of the best home environments in the country. I don't see how Texas loses this game, to be honest. I take Texas -3.5 here.
We might be a pro-Texas show now when they don't play Michigan.
We
might be pro. Shout out Nash. Well, our boy Nash, right?
I've been on this Texas train. If I could, literally after week 1, I go, I should have switched my pick from Texas to Ohio. I had Ohio State as my national champion preseason. Should have switched it to Texas immediately after week 1.
I do want to say real quick, this is like at least how I will wrap up for me. Georgia, their game plan is also going to be just keep the ball out of Texas's hands. Like they're going to want to run the ball because that's what they do the best. So aside from picking a side, I do also like the under here because I don't think Georgia's not going to have any interest in throwing the ball unless they get down big early.
And that's another thing to point out where, are you impressed with these Georgia receivers at all?
No, Carter, that is a great point because I had thought about Georgia teams in years past and how the offenses look worse, like than Stetson Bennett, Georgia. Even last year, like you lose Ladd McConkey, you lose Brock Bowers, and this offense, I mean, it just looks completely different in terms of receivers and tight ends. So you might be onto something there too, because I thought of that throughout this week when I was doing prep.
Texas has an elite secondary,
very good secondary, very good in coverage.
That's why I think Texas. I think Texas is clear, far away the best team in this country. Hook 'em left and right. I mean, it's Texas -3.5. Now we're gonna get that text. We're gonna text each other before the game, be like, "Oh my gosh, dude, the line's down to 2.5."
Georgia, it's a pick 'em.
97% of money's on Texas.
Oh yeah. Oh, the sports book's biggest need. They're on their knees for a Georgia win. And then I'll still take Texas and lose money.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Texas
you know.
alt line.
Yeah. Texas alt line. Give it to me.